The electronic media is one industry that has developed at the speed of light. In a short span of 7 years, dozens of stations have raised their mast after Joy FM in Accra, which pioneered private commercial radio. But even before the failed Radio Eye ahead of Joy FM was shut down, there was a man who had been popping out the positive antics of private radio and all that constitute its virtue. This man worked at the state-owned Accra FM. Long before private broadcasters began to delight listeners, he was doing so in a grand style. Long before talk about radio ethics, this man championed it. Long before all the humor was brought to private radio, this man had told some of the best jokes. Long before broadcasters were hailed for playing good music, this man played all the melody. Long before people began to say private broadcasting in Ghana is coming of age, this man was already a veteran. When Joy FM rocked the national capital in 1995, this man was at the front line. This man probably lit the torch that is now being carried by private broadcasters in Ghana today, and is my guest on Big Issues. Tommy Annan Forson for short and tough for long.
Where did you get that humor?
I don't know. It just happened to come out, and that was it. You know, it was adapted by everybody who was listening to it.
When did you first say Tommy Annan Forson for short?
I really can't remember. I remember it was some years ago, but as to the exact date, I can't remember. I know I was sitting in the studio one day, and I just happened to mention my name, and it just dawned on me that let me say something different, let me say something funny, and that was what came out of my lips. You know, Tommy Annan Forson for short, TF for long, and I just thought that people would laugh at it, you know, and somehow it just clicked and worked.
Well, maybe the first time I must have heard it because I was one of those who kept laughing when you say tough for long. But really, who is Tommy Annan Forson?
That's a pretty good question. Tommy Annan Forson is, if I should start this way, a fair-colored person, a very, very down-to-earth person, a little temperamental, not ashamed to admit, a workaholic, a disciplinarian, and perhaps a little more. But Tommy Annan Forson is somebody who loves to communicate to people, entertain people, educate people if possible, and go the length and breadth, you know, to make sure that everybody I talk to, cutting across board, feels absolutely satisfied with everything that I've been able to do program-wise. So basically, that's who Tommy Annan Forson is.
I see, but you didn't add that you're a handsome man.
Oh my goodness! No, that is getting me a little embarrassed, you know.
Now, you say you're a temperamental person and you are not afraid to admit that. That shows you're a courageous person as well.
Well, when I say temperamental, I find maybe with regards to my job and my career, I find it difficult to apprehend when people fail to realize that, you know, talking in the parameters of my job, that people fail to understand the differences between right and wrong, the do's and don'ts. Okay, so that is what probably gets me agitated. But I think generally itself, radio is a very stressful job. It is extremely stressful because one, you're thinking of what to say, what to play, what to write, to make sure that you do not offend anybody. So all in all, it builds up so much stress in you, okay? And when I find that somebody's not doing what is expected of him or her with regards to her or his job, it kind of aggravates me, you know, because I happen to be a perfectionist. I want to be a perfectionist, and I expect that if you apply for a job, you would be the same. Okay, so perhaps that is the more reason why I am temperamental, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
And when you get really temperamental, how does it show?
It probably shows with a lot of screaming. Violence is out, totally out. I couldn't do that anyway because I'm sure the newspapers will pick it up.
And maybe you are not strong enough?
No, I wouldn't say I'm not strong enough. I'm very strong. I'm very capable. But I don't believe in violence. Solving problems. I don't believe slapping anybody or hitting anybody on the jaw will solve any problem. I think dialogue is the most important thing. Perhaps in your younger years, you want to show some kind of machoism, which in the end doesn't correct anything. It just aggravates the situation. So for me, it's just perhaps a little screaming and yelling, to prove a certain point, and that's the farthest I'll go.
But that would mean that you would have problem with a lot of your friends?
I wouldn't say friends. Perhaps workmates, yes. But friends, we're looking at a very face level kind of thing. It's hi there, sit somewhere, have a drink, talk, blah, blah, blah. But with regards to work, yes, perhaps I would have a problem with a lot of people. And that is what hurts me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if you just join us, this is Big Issues, and it's Big Issues with Homie Annan Forson, the veteran broadcaster. We're trying to unmask the broadcaster in him, the persona in him, the man himself. Now, let's get back to your very early days. What's your parentage?
My father was Fanti from Cape Coast. My mother's was British. They all have been called to glory, so to speak. So that's basically it.
And how old are you?
I'm 47.
Where were you born? Where did you school?
I started with Osu. Well, that was when we moved to Laboni in '63 with Osu Home Primary School. After that, I went to Eden Secondary School, now Eden High School on the Odoko Road. It was then a very, very good school, extremely good school. And after that, I started work. I'm sure you must be asking why I started work. Yes.
At a young age?
At a very young age. And
about what age?
In fact, as soon as I finished school, that was about 18. I started working because when I was in Form 3, the second term, that was when my dad passed away. And unfortunately, like any other person, you expect a huge bank account, that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, he didn't leave anything for us cash-wise. He left a nice house for us, and I always thank him for that. So my mother, being British, wasn't working as well. My two brothers were then in school, one in London, one in the US when he passed away. So in effect, I had to work during holidays, to be able to pay my school fees, to be able to finish school. So in effect, to tell you the truth, I haven't even been to sixth form. I've never been to sixth form. I've never been to university. And that's because at the time, my mom wasn't working. We needed to support her, kind of financially. So I just opted to work as soon as I finished school. And that was at the age of 18.
I see. But just one point.
Yes.
Your mother is British, but being British doesn't guarantee that you speak good English. Now, here you are, you didn't go to sixth form or university, but you speak brilliant English. How did you do that?
My father was very strict with regards to the kind of language that we spoke at home, okay? He always communicated in English to my mom. He always communicated in English to us, Always, occasionally he would slip in a fancy phrase or something, but sorry, we were not allowed to speak any local language at home except under his choice or supervision, which he did, but I think he wanted us somehow to perfect our English, and because my mom was British, we always communicated in English.
You have only two brothers?
Yes,
older or younger than you?
Older. In fact, I happen to be the last born.
And
I have one sister who lives in Botswana. She's married. She lives in Botswana. My eldest brother passed away in 1989, leaving the second born, my sister and myself.
How did you relate to, I mean, these older brothers of yours when you were growing? Because apparently you must have been playing a lot of pranks on them when you.
Oh yes. I was terrible. I mean, I was a crazy dude, so to speak. You know, I used to play a lot of pranks on them, but we got on very well, very very well, because my father wanted to make sure that there was no division in the family. So even as at now, just before my mom passed away, she was always asking us to make a promise, you know, that even if she left this earth, we would not split, you know, we would not separate. So as a result of that, my eldest brother, Gerald, the second one, lives upstairs. We have a 13-bedroom house.
13, 1-3.
Yeah, 1-3. It's a 5-bedroom down, 5 up, and an outer house. Okay, so my brother's upstairs, and I live in the outer house because we made that promise that we're not, you know, going to separate, you know, from each other. You know, well, my sister's different. I mean, she had to get married anyway, so that was it. So we still live together.
What are some of the memories you carry about your childhood that stays with you up to this moment?
I find it difficult to say anything about that now because we were under very very strict supervision, you know, very very strict supervision. My dad was, if I could say, the first black man in the British Army as a captain.
In the British
Army.
What was his name?
Captain Annan Forson. He was, captain. In fact, I was named after him, so I'm Thomas Annan Forson Jr. Okay, but in radio I decided to use Tommy. So you know, those days discipline was the watchword. I mean, hey, if you were in the British Army and you were black, you were disciplinarian. So we were under very very strict supervision, you know. So I think that was one thing I'll always remember in my childhood, that my dad gave me discipline. He disciplined me. Perhaps at that age I didn't understand, but I do now, you know, and I realize it did me a lot of good. It did me a lot of good. That's one of the things that I would remember. And then remembering the very day I got behind the console, you know, well, I could say I was just, I can't remember, maybe 21, 22, you know, but that was the thrill for me, getting behind the console and realizing that I was talking to the world. You know, that's one of the fondest memories.
Well, it is what you're still doing this very moment, isn't it?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, when you were growing up, right? Children have dreams when they're growing up. They want to become pilots. They want to become doctors, and so on. What were your dreams?
I actually wanted to become an engineer. I really wanted to become an engineer. Whilst I was working, I was doing a course with ICS in London, you know, and that's how I got my certificate as a mechanical engineer, which actually was what I did. I wanted to be that, but I think, you know, at a point in time in every man's life, you have your dreams, you have your aspirations. They don't always turn out as you plan them to be. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And I always believe that it is destiny that shapes, you know, our future. So that was my dream, but somewhere along the line, it just fell apart. I think it was coincidental.
And you never became an engineer?
I used to fiddle a lot with machines, cars, and stuff like that. That was one thing I loved, you know, and I always wanted to be the top class, you know, car mechanic and make sure that, you know, scores of people with their cars would come to my workshop and stuff like that. But like I said, hey, destiny chose what I was supposed to do, and that's what I'm doing today.
But for now, when you're driving a car and it breaks down on the road, would you be able to help yourself?
Definitely. I have no problem whatsoever with that. With not one single bit, unless of course it's something that requires spares and I have to, you know, go buy spares. But even that, if it's possible, I fix it myself.
Well, I would have hoped that perhaps one day, if you retired from radio, you would have pursued the dream of engineering, where you become a fitter. But apparently, you will never retire from radio.
I don't know. I don't know if I would retire
Okay,
from radio.
you keep it there.
All right.
Later on, we'll go into that. But listen, did you really, at what point did you think of radio, if you ever did, before going in?
Again, that was coincidental. Okay. I love slow music a lot. Okay, I love country music a lot. I love ballads a lot because they always tell us a message. One presenter, then they were called DJs. Nowadays we're called presenters. You know, the more class.
Yeah.
Gives you a lot more class. And I stumbled on GBC2 then, and I heard this guy's voice. It was magnificent. It was heartwarming. It was catchy.
You better give me the name.
He was called Jim Amakpofo. Okay, he sounded extremely foreign. Okay, but he played the kind of music that I loved listening to. You know, so each time he was signing off, he would say, "Well, I'll be with you tomorrow afternoon, or I'll be off duty tomorrow. I'll be on at this time in the morning," and stuff. So I made sure I trailed him, and it got to a point I couldn't control myself. I had to meet this guy just to find out who is Jim. So I did. Okay. And that's how we became friends. And I wanted to leave it at that, just friends, okay? And occasionally he'd play a song for me whilst I was, lying down, relaxing, and it kind of excited me. You know, hey, my name is on radio, and hey,
Thomas
telling telling my wife that hey, they mentioned my name and blah blah blah. But anyway, it happened that they were coming to open a nightclub called Babylon. It's now Hinlun Restaurant. It's a Chinese restaurant, and at the opening ceremony, they invited me. Went there. Jim was the main DJ with, I think, Benny Osuenchi. He used to be a newsreader, fantastic newsreader. And it so happened that one day they didn't turn up. And I was there waiting for them. No DJ, no spinner. Oh boy.
No presenter.
No presenter. So the owner, Italian, was a friend of mine. I said, look, just show me what to do on the turntables and blah, where the fiddle is and blah, blah, blah. So I just sat there, just playing music. Some of them would dance, some of them wouldn't. I would play a hard song here, and I'll play. I mean, everything was just bazaar. But so long as there was sound in the disco. And that's how I began to develop, But apparently, Jim kind of saw the potential in me. So he would intentionally not turn up sometimes so that I would sit and use that as a practice gig. And then Robert Owusu, another veteran broadcaster, came there one evening to have a beer, and he heard me. He says, "Look, Tommy, I think you have a fantastic voice. You speak well. You play good music. Why don't you try for radio?" I said, "No way. That's out of the question. To talk to the whole world, I don't have the nerve for that." Okay. But he convinced me. Apparently, he went to talk to the director of radio, who also invited me, and blah blah blah. And Jim said, "Look, Tommy, I'm going to do something." So he went to see the director of radio, and the director of radio called me and said, "Put in your application."
Who was the director of radio then, if you remember?
May he rest in peace, Felix Sejafa. He was a fantastic guy. I mean, he knew what radio material was. Okay. So he says, "You put in your application whether you like it or not." So I did. And there was a whole battle there because I had a couple of problems with my final exams, but I went through all right. So that is how I actually started radio. And he said, "Tommy, the last thing I want you to do is to disappoint me." I said, "Sir, I will try as much as possible not to disappoint you." And that's basically how I actually got behind the microphone. Ask. I mean, if you talk about a tree shaking because the wind is blowing, that would be an understatement. Talking about being nervous, having at the back of your mind that, hey, the only radio station, shortwave, the whole country, everybody's listening to you. And it's like, gosh, what if I make a mistake? What if I make a slip? What if something happens? What goes on? And I was allowed to do a 15-minute program. And to me, it was like a 3-hour program. I mean, 15 minutes, like I was just hurrying to get the heck out of that place. And when I did, I mean, my teeth were like, and I said, gosh, people make it sound so easy. But as we went along, they found out that my confidence was building, and they started giving me, longer hour programs, which I was able to handle. So it was a good experience. It was nerve-wracking, but
did you go through training? I mean,
Oh,
did
yes.
Ghana Broadcasting, what kind of training did they give you?
We went through a general. Initially, they taught us how to use the console, PPM levels, filters and stuff like that. How to make sure you know how to mix stuff like that, pre-fading, cross-fading, stuff like that. But after a while, they took us through a general level course, which is a 9-week radio intensive course. I mean, you're being trained morning, afternoon. We start lectures at 9, go for a 30-minute break, lunch. If you don't eat, that's your problem. You come back at 1, we finish at 4, sometimes 5. We went through everything from production through to pronunciation, through to phonetics, through interviews, program presentation, preparation, name it. It was a 9-week course. It was the training, you know.
It was loaded.
Oh, it was loaded. It was heavily loaded, you know. After which they gave us radio training school certificates, you know, from Ghana Broadcasting, endorsed by BBC, you know. So it's quite a recognizable certificate. So that's how we actually trained. But then it involves talent as well. Yeah.
What is the program you presented those days 15 minutes ago? Do you have recordings of them? Did it involve?
At the time, we're using reel to reel, you know, but you had to record every program for what you call autopsy. Okay, it was lunchtime special, and lunchtime special was what Jim was doing when I got to, you know him. Yeah, I got to know him, and that was the kind of program that I was handling. Okay. Until they decided that's the soft side of Tommy. Let's find out what the hip side of Tommy is. And Jim called me one morning and said I should go and do a program called The Morning Spin. I said, Jesus, Jim, you want to kill me? I mean, that's prime time radio. You know, that was like from 7:15 to 8 on shortwave, and it had to be upbeat, up and going. And I think that was what set the pace. You know, and I think I slipped once. I quite remember I slipped. It was a bad slip, and I made a joke out of it. And when the director of radio came, he said, "That's the man I'm looking for."
I see.
So that was how the far side of Tommy started, and then gradually, you know,
started rising.
I guess so.
Adverts. Were you playing adverts back then?
Yes, we were playing adverts. I mean, it was hell because the reels, you know, were tiny little things. You know, they're not the 12-inch, 6-inch reels. They were like 2 inches. You know, and you had to thread because at the time we're not using cassette machines and stuff like that. You know, the kind of equipment that we're using was specifically for broadcasting. You know, nowadays everything is integrated circuits and blah blah blah, you know, but those were valves and stuff like that. So you had to thread fast, and by the time you finish, like you've run a mile. You know, but it's a self-op studio. You have to do everything yourself.
And we'll get back to that later. I was going to ask about the technology, how you have kept up with it, but maybe we should handle it now. How have you, adapted from the reel-to-reel thing to cassette to, now mini disc and CDs,
audio volts and stuff like that? Well, you see, I personally have always been interested in gizmos like CD players, cassette decks and
big toys.
Big toys, and I'm a music fanatic. My ears, there's a certain amount of finesse that must go through my ears before I'm absolutely satisfied. So any little new thing that came out, it was like, gosh, how do you use this? What does this do? What can it do? And I found it easy. Each time something came up, I just took a quick look at it, and that was it, So I was fascinated with big toys. So as soon as the big toys came out, I must work with them, and that's how I got into, followed up the technology.
You are with Ghana Broadcasting Corporation as of this moment, but I want to ask you, how long did you spend GBC? And you understand what I mean. How long were you with GBC?
I was there for 16 years. Then I went to Joy FM for close to 2 years. Then I went to Sunshine
Now Choice.
For about 3 years. Then back to GBC for close to 2 years. So that's 23. Is that 23 years? I guess
23 years. Okay. I'll tell you something. Once I was talking to Mr. J.H. Mensah, and then he said, well, when I entered government 30 years ago, and I ended up deducting my age from the 30 years. But on this occasion, I wouldn't have to deduct my age from the 23. But that's still something. 23 long years.
Yeah.
And the man who inspired you at first, you call him Jim Amekpofo.
Yeah.
Is he alive?
Yeah, he's alive.
Do you still chum up with him?
No, he moved to the U.S. As the last time I got to know, he was in New Jersey. Occasionally he comes down. He's married there. He comes down, and I think he works with Radio France International. He has quite a heavy schedule. But anytime he comes down to Ghana, he makes sure that he links up with me.
And he is special to you?
Very, very special. Very special. Godwin Avenogbo, Charlie Sam. I will always, in any interview, acknowledge that these are the guys, apart from the God Almighty who gave me the talent, these are the guys who made me.
Yes, this is Big Issues. Tommy Annan Forson is the Big Issues at this moment. He's a veteran broadcaster. He needs no introduction. His name simply is Tommy Annan Forson.
So don't introduce me then.
For short. Tough for long. Now, don't do any of those things. Yeah, because on this occasion, I am in charge. Right?
Okay, yes, sir.
Good. Tell me, the days you were in GBC, those days when radio was like a mystery, when radio was a monotheistic system, when nobody thought private radio could be a possibility. Did you imagine it, that private radio was possible? Did you look forward to it?
I always thought it would be, because of the way our democracy was going, the way the media was always craving for private radio, I thought, and I knew it was going to be quite difficult, as to when it was going to start or be allowed to come on the airwaves was something that I didn't know. But I always had a dream. I always knew that someday there was going to be private radio, and it did happen. It did happen, and I think it was a great break for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about Radio I. Some people, possibly a lot of young people, may not know, even though it's recent history. And since you were interested in private radio, you were looking forward to. Tell me about Radio I.
I didn't know much about Radio I, but a couple of times that I met Reku Brobe, he was always talking about radio stations and blah blah blah. And at the time, I thought my talent was being suppressed, so to speak. I couldn't explode as I wanted to. So when he talked about radio, I was excited. But later on, when I got to find out he was politically inclined, like I said, I don't discuss politics on the air. I don't do that. I don't have the temperament.
No politics
for that.
here.
I don't have the temperament for that. I'm an entertainer. I like to keep it that way. So I opted. He wanted me to work for him, and I later on just forgot about the idea. Hoping that at least another radio station would surface, and lo and behold, it did. But as for Radio I in itself, I really didn't know too much about it. I was only happy that they came on the air, but later on they lost the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, and then Joy came, 1995, exploded in Accra. How did you get on board?
Whew, that was... I happened to be at home one morning. I think I was on leave. I can't remember. Or I was off duty. And I got a call from... Kwesi Chum. No, I got a call. My wife said she got a call that somebody was looking for me in connection with a radio station. I said, yeah. I've heard all this before, so let's just forget about it. And I got a call from Kwesi. Came to me one early morning, very early in the morning, and said, he was starting a radio station. And I said to myself, yeah, it's just one of those things again, But I didn't know the legalities then, how far he had fought and that kind of stuff. But when he gave me the frequency, 99.7, gave me the name of the station, I was a little reluctant to believe that it was true. But I accepted it halfway, until we started discussing jingles and I heard a sample. Then I realized, so private radio has actually hit the airwaves. So he said he would like me to work with him. So that was it. I worked with him.
You did?
I did.
First of all, you left GBC.
Yeah.
Tell me, what kind of faith did you have that Joy 99.7 FM was going to work? Because having been with GBC for 15 years, it must have taken a lot for you to decide.
Yes, it did. It did take a lot for me to decide, you see. But at the same time, I probably took the decision because I needed to explode. I thought I had so much in me that was not being used. Okay. But of course, with state-owned enterprise, you needed to be careful, make sure you know what to say, how to say it before you step on anybody's toes. So there was that little restriction. Okay. You were given the rope, but when you moved one step too much, you were pulled back. Okay. And sometimes there were not pleasant experiences at all. I mean, I must admit. So I needed to let out everything that I had. So when I had the opportunity, I said to myself, well, let me give it a shot and see. If it doesn't work, I probably will quit radio altogether. Because
quit radio altogether?
Yeah, I had a divided mind, you see, because here I was leaving GBC for a private station. The private station probably wouldn't work. So what would I be going back to do? Okay, I probably have a tougher time. Okay, getting back into that.
But were you going to quit because radio meant GBC and Joy at the time?
No, I really wouldn't have quit then. But you see, I said to myself, I want to tell the world, speak to the world, let them know that I have something that is not being used and used properly. Okay, and if I spoke to the world and I told them, and it didn't work, then perhaps I would know that even after all these years I was wrong, okay? Because of my limitations in a state-owned media. People thought, hey, it's exciting. This guy can do anything that he wants. At that time, not knowing that, hey, you go a little bit and you pull back, because everything was so formal. Straight jacket, formal. So I was a little bit different. So I wanted to talk to the world. I did. And voila, it happened.
If I should write a news out of this interview, one of the headlines I could consider is Tommy and Annan Forson once considered
quitting radio. Oh boy. I'm sure all the newspapers will come looking for you, huh?
Okay, Enjoy 99.7 FM. When was the first time you went on air? How was it like? Whose voice was first heard on air at Joy FM?
It was actually Dusty Wayne. Because when Dusty more or less quit first, okay? When Kwesi came to see me, I said, listen, Dusty Wayne is the guy to work with. So Dusty quit first, okay? And I thought it would be a huge blow if somebody realized that Dusty and I were quitting at the same time. So I needed to wait for about a week or so.
Okay.
But it was like, there was speculation.
Yeah.
Okay, but it didn't actually happen. So Dusty went on the air first. And then, of course, there were other programmers who were there, but they were not allowed to use the microphone. It was only Dusty. Okay, but of course, he couldn't do all the number of hours. So he just do a couple of hours and then go off the air.
But when you went on air at first, can you remember the moment? It's just 7 years ago.
I think.
What are some of the things you said then?
It was. I really wouldn't be. I remember when I first actually hit the microphone. Okay, there was so much excitement in me, that I think the first thing I said was Joy 95.7. Because 99.7 and then 95.7 were the same, but it was such a dream come true that 99.7 was too true to believe that it existed. Okay, and I remember my first time on air, I did an 8-hour stretch non-stop. But the exuberance was there because it was such a feeling to go around everywhere. And people were, you pass here was joy, you pass here was joy. And the jingles were so unique that it was something that had never been heard before. So it was an explosion. Okay? And knowing that, hey, so this man has actually left GBC and gone to Joy FM and gone to Explode. We didn't know he had all this. So you really wouldn't get tired of being on the air. So the first day I did an 8-hour stretch and went home full of energy. And it was such an experience.
Tommy and Forson once did 8 hours straight on radio.
Well, I've done more than that, actually.
Okay.
I've done more than that.
Yeah,
I've done a 15-hour stretch.
Ooh,
Yes.
I see. What occasion was that?
Well, this was on Radio 2, then GBC 2. We used to work a shift of 5:30 to, I think, 8:05 or 9:05. Go off the air, come back at 12, and then the morning shift would close at 2. But those to relieve me at 2, because I was doing the 12 o'clock program, failed to turn up. Okay? Now, 3 people in the team would work 3 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours. So 2 to 5, 5 to 8, 8 to 11. Then we close down 5 after 11. Now, the 2 to 5 failed to turn up. Had made an arrangement with the 2 to 5. So the 5 to 8 failed to turn up. And then the 8 to 11 fell ill. So I ran from 5:30 in the morning till 11 at night. I don't know if the calculation is right, but that was what I did.
Okay, 15
But
hours.
it was for me, it was exciting because it was radio. Okay, yeah.
All right. So after Joy, something happened.
Yes.
A sun shone. You left Joy. Why did you leave Joy FM?
Oh, I guess it's the usual pieces of frustration here and there, not being allowed to do what at a certain point in time, not being allowed to do what you know how to do best, so you're kind of sidestepped for a while, and you're not told in the face that, hey, I think we've had enough of you, or you can tell, so I said, well, the best thing is that let me just bow out quietly and walk away.
Komla Dumo is considered a great broadcaster in Ghana.
He is.
Today, you trained him. Are you proud of him?
Extremely proud of him. I am extremely, extremely proud of him. I'm extremely proud of people like Kwabna Peku, Fifi Pratt, George Boone, Lily Ankra, But I think
You trained them also.
yes. Well, Lily and George were doing radio all, themselves. But you learn from all quarters, okay? They learned a lot from me, I learned a lot from them. But George and I clicked so well, okay? But Komla Dumo stood out, I think, because of the fact that he learned quickly. He was still, Joy FM was still in its prime, okay? When he took over from me, okay? Joy FM was still stood out. So he had an advantage. And he used it well. He used it to the best of his ability. He has a great voice. He speaks impeccable English. So that's what made him stand out.
Still, I should ask you, what's unique about him?
I think it's his voice and his ability to communicate, effectively. And that is one thing you must have in radio. Effective communication. How to talk to people, the way to talk to them, what to say, how to make their day. In every situation, it could be a good situation, it could be a bad situation, and Komla Dumo had that, and I thought it was great.
And some people say that you clashed with him at Joy FM, and that was one of the reasons why.
We
you
never.
left.
No, I will say it here and now. Komla Dumo and myself never, ever clashed. In fact, let me let out a secret. When I left Joy FM, I tried to get him to Sunshine. He came there a couple of times. The CEO then spoke to him. They were in the process of negotiating, and I think the CEO of Joy also heard and decided, if I lose this one, case closed. So he also decided, well, if this man is going to give you this one CD, I'll give you 10. Okay? And I thought, well, Komla Dumo is old enough to decide for himself. The thing is, I loved him so much, and I do love him. He's my cousin, as a matter of fact. On the mother's side, he is.
You are?
Yes, we're cousins. Yes, even though he's Ebe and I'm Fancy, but my father and his mother, were connected relatively. if I should say it that way.
Yeah, they are distant relatives.
Yeah, distant relatives. So that makes him a cousin of mine. But I tried to get him there because we connected so well. We connected so we used to fool about so much. Okay, but unfortunately, I left, and he decided, well, let me stay at Joy and do his thing. But we never, ever clashed. And
up to now, what's your relationship?
It's good. I mean, everybody's got his schedule. Okay, I cannot go to Joy every day because Comrade Dumont is there. If I see him in town, fine. If I don't, fine.
You call each other?
Yeah, we call each other. I see him in town, we hug each other, we fool around, we laugh, But somebody would notice something and say that, oh, Comrade Dumont is either a little arrogant or Tommy is a little... But you might fail to realize that at that point in time, he could be in a bad mood. And that is when somebody would notice it and just draw a conclusion, that, hey. But Comrade Dumont and I never clashed.
But this is not the first time you're hearing this. And how did you feel when you started hearing this, that you had a clash?
I've always said that that's human nature. That's the perception of people. Why should I clash with Comrade Dumont, a good product in radio, helped by perhaps me? What's the point? There's no point. We have differences of opinion, yes, but as far as human relations go, Comrade Dumont and myself are perfectly fine. He was busy, I'm busy, we don't see each other, and hey, I don't even know why people drew that anyway.
You told me, Annan Forson, you left Sunshine Choice FM. Why?
Maybe Smart can tell you that.
Okay, well, just for the benefit of listeners, Smart Adi is the real name.
Yeah.
He happens to be the technical head of Skype FM right now. He worked with you at Choice FM.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
Smart can tell, but he won't tell.
Very, very hardworking person. Very,
you
very hardworking.
are going to tell me, why did you leave?
Again, the issue of frustration. The issue of frustration. I hate to say it, but it is the truth, They decided at a point in time that they wanted to go into talk radio. Talk radio meant they were going to discuss social issues, political issues, and at the time, that was where we were going for this elections, for the present government and stuff like that. So that for them was a platform to launch, their talk radio, 24-hour talk radio. And for me, I have always been an entertainer. I love playing music for people to enjoy themselves. So I thought I didn't fit into that profile. Okay? So I decided, well, if that is the case, I might as well just, see if GBC would accept me. And wholeheartedly, hey, Godwin at the time was the director of radio, the acting director of radio. He said, whoa, this is material sitting down going to waste. So GL was then in a crisis then. So, hey, let me see if I can just inject a little enthusiasm into the radio. And bang, it worked.
But Tommy, you couldn't be in need of job in radio in Ghana. You couldn't hope.
No,
you couldn't hope that you'd be employed at GBC.
No, at the time, I was weighing so much. There was so much I could do, and there's so much I can do. Okay, not for the want of job, but the fact that I love radio so much. I just love radio so much. But then it set me thinking. Why should I go make stations for people? And inappreciative of the fact that you've taken their station somewhere, and then impediments are put in your way. You tend to ask yourself, should I do that again? Because at a point in time, Radio Gold even wanted me to leave Choice FM when Choice FM was at its prime, and I said, sorry, I cannot do that. I'm a loyalist. I'm dedicated to Choice FM. Okay, so I asked myself so many questions, but then again, I couldn't do without radio. Okay, but I think I'd had enough of private radio and their decisions. I'd had enough. I wouldn't say everybody does it, but with the experience I've had, they get what they can from you, and then
GBC, Joy FM, Choice FM, GBC again. But some people, based on that, say you're a radio prostitute. What comment would you have about that?
Even the prodigal son, when he took all his property and went to blow it, came back to his father. Amen. You see,
Yeah.
you can think of me as a radio prostitute if you want to. At the end of the day, I can comfortably say that God has given me a talent and I deliver.
Oh, yeah. Now, who can envy that statement?
That's the best I can say.
Who can envy that statement? And he delivers.
Oh, yes.
Wow. Okay, you know, that question, I thought it was going to take you some time, but you just finished it up. And
Yeah, you see, I mean, let's face it. Why would you call somebody a radio prostitute? You know, why would you want to do that? The opportunities are there. I mean, even if you look at BBC, there's some people who work on BBC TV. They've gone to Deutsche Welle. They've come back to BBC. They've gone back to Deutsche Welle. Are you going to call them a TV? At the end of the day, everything is based on what? Ligidi.
what's liggity?
Money. Okay?
Okay.
So the highest bidder wins. Okay? But the fact that the crust of the matter is, at that point, I couldn't see myself holding tools, fixing somebody's car, going home and listening to radio and knowing that I have radio in me and I can't communicate with everyone. It would probably just break me.
All right, let's look at other aspects of radio, and I'm going to ask you, what is radio? Is it just a business? Why the rush to set up radio stations all over the place? Because in 7 years, you can count several dozens that has come. Why? How? What is radio?
I think radio in itself, if you have a good marketing strategy, you have good programming, you have a good and dedicated and disciplined staff, radio can get you places. Radio can make you walk into practically any office in this land, depending on how you project yourself, how you carry yourself. Yeah? Radio is a business like any other business. Okay? And I think the rush was the fact that when Joe FM hit the scene, I mean, they made the bucks. Let's face it. They made the bucks. Okay? Then Choice FM shot to the top and made the bucks. And people said, hey, there's money in radio. Let me go into it. But the pie for advertising is so small that if you don't have a good strategy, okay, and you concentrate your business in one area, you're going to have it tough. Very, very tough.
So, in Accra, has the men been separated from the boys, or the boys been separated from the men? Given the competition,
it'll be a little difficult to say, because I would look at it from two angles: the professional aspect of it and the non-professional aspect of it. Okay?
Yeah.
If you listen to Peace FM, okay, you listen to a couple of good voices. But to me, personally, sorry to say this, but they're noisy. Very, very noisy. I would listen to Kwame Sefakai. Okay? You could listen to Fifi Banson a couple of minutes and you're tired. Okay? But you can listen to the other stations and tell that these people have been handpicked from either nightclubs and say, hey, this is the microphone. Sit down. This is the console. That's your CD player. That's your other gizmos. That's your thingamabob.
Save Jenny.
Save Jenny. Airborne. So you're listening to a lot of trash and professionalism. Okay? So the boys being separated from the men, it is not because I'm in GBC or Unique. But if you listen to Unique, you find out that the professional ethics in radio is there. We know what to say, how to say it at the right time. It is not just entertainment. It's not just finding out facts and figures and blowing out the whole. It's not just an issue of controversy that makes your station what it is, but your entire programming. Okay, so that's a point. That's just a point that I can make for now. As for the separation, yes, it's there, but I think the boys are just too many from the men. If I let me say man.
Okay, we're looking for men, but apparently Tommy is finding just one man. But what makes a good broadcaster?
Oh, I think a good voice, your command over the language, your sense of humor must be very, very original. Very, very, very original. If you don't have it, because somebody does it, you think you can do it, forget it. I mean, it'll just backfire, period. Your ability to select good music that it's not only you who would listen to, but somebody else will hear and say, hey, that's a beautiful song. Who played it? Or who is playing it? It is somebody, or it's this guy. Okay? So if you get people appreciating how you communicate, how you talk to them, the kind of music that you play, the kind of humor you inject into your program without stepping on toes, being able to handle any program at any time, all-rounder, makes you a good broadcaster.
Mm-hmm. And I was also going to ask you about the radio business in the rest of the country, all over the place. Takrady has 3 radio stations now. Kumasi has upwards of 5, 6. Yeah. What do you say about it? Apparently, it's going to happen. It's going to continue.
Yeah, information technology is growing at an extremely fast rate. People are more open-minded with regards to democracies and politics and other issues. So it is the radio stations who can inform, entertain, and educate. And of course, with everybody's differences, everybody's different opinion, to each issue that is discussed, makes it interesting. So yes, it's interesting all over the place, but it depends on how you perceive radio to be as an individual.
Mm-hmm. All right, and so the radio business that you've been in which you've made a mark, an indelible one, would you regret entering it?
No, not at all. Not one.
Why wouldn't you regret?
You see, because
you've had some serious experiences.
Yes, I've had a couple of experiences, but excuse me, it's like that in every business. I mean, sometimes in business you lose, you gain. In the radio business, you see, but fortunately, I have had the fortune, if I should say, of not being ridiculed by any newspaper ever since I started my career. Except, fine, they might notice that I'm a little temperamental, but hey, that's me. That's Tommy. Take me for what I am. Take it or leave it. Okay? It makes me feel my father left for me a legacy, discipline, and I used that throughout the 23 years. So I would want to make sure that even though you would make a mistake, you would know immediately that you've made a mistake and try and correct it. So I've been fortunate enough not to be lambasted by any of the newspapers, and I hope and I pray to God that they won't catch me in any situation, and I know they won't. Okay? That's one experience I've gone through and I've loved. With regards to blah blah blah, I work at it's normal, it happens. It's fancy p, but there we are.
Now fancy enti fancy papa no.
Oh, most of the time, I'm in cran. Now my uncle for most of them now were in cran for. Moko school na nkran. And say, why Zindabia, I be sure be a fancy typical. Na my papa so on pende, yabaka fancy with ye. Cause no pede or a shoulder yam roughen, obey Walesha.
And who happens to be your best friend, Tommy?
God is my best friend.
Apart from God?
My wife is my best friend.
Do you sing because you love music so much? Do you sing at all?
No, I don't sing. I don't sing at all.
And do you don't like politics, at least on air, but do you hold any particular political ideology?
I would keep that to myself. Like I said, on the air.
No, I'm not asking you to disclose.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yes.
Okay. Tommy.
Yes.
You tell me the last thing you have for people in Takoradi, for people who are listening to you, and then we say goodbye.
For people listening to me in Takoradi, I haven't been to Takoradi in years. And now that I'm here today, I find the people in Takoradi, the few places that I've been to, patient, kind, tolerant. The drivers especially, I was surprised that I think they're more patient, than drivers in Accra. I want to say that Takoradi is a beautiful place. It's a place if you want to relax and get away from stress. Come to Takoradi. I mean, fine, there are places, resorts here and there, but if you're looking for a town where you can mix with people, laugh and enjoy, I think Takoradi is the place.
Tommy and Forson, I am offering you a job at Sky Power FM because you love Takoradi. I would love you to come and work here at Sky Power FM.
But I want to thank you guys too. I mean, hey, you've given me such a treat that it's just made me feel like a king, And let me just make a quick appeal, to drivers who are traveling to Takoradi, to and from, or from Takoradi to Accra. The journey is long. Mpocho won't say. The journey is long. You go mile after mile after mile after mile. If somebody gets to Accra in 2 hours 30 minutes and you get to Accra in 3 hours 30 minutes, the difference is 1 hour, but you're still alive. Mpocho pi. Msawon. Mzenyame poncho. The 121 I saw an accident on my way here. It was terrible. Please take your time. There is no need to speed. Even if it takes 3 days to get to Accra, you will still get there. Alive. You have families. You have people who look up to you. You are breadwinners. Win that bread and don't kill that bread. The speed that thrills is the speed that kills.
Coming from the man himself, this has been Big Issues with Tommy Annan Forson. My name is Phillip Nyakpo, and Tommy Annan Forson, I'd like to thank you very much for making time to be with us.
Philip, it's been a tremendous trip. I've loved it so much. I have loved it, and I definitely would want to come back.